The enigma of Stonehenge. The wind swept across the wide, rolling plains of southern England, carrying whispers of a distant past. In the middle of this vast landscape stood an ancient monument, its massive stones towering against the skyline, weathered by centuries of relentless storms and the hands of time. Stonehenge, a name that evokes curiosity, awe, and mystery, beckoned all who gazed upon it. For thousands of years, it had stood silent, guarding the secrets of its origins like an enigma wrapped in stone. For many, the question was simple. Why was Stonehenge built? But the answer remained elusive, lost in the fog of history. Was it a sacred site, a temple dedicated to gods long forgotten? Or was it something more? An astronomical observatory, precisely aligned with the sun's movements, a celestial clock used to track the passage of time? Every theory added a layer to the mystery, yet none seemed to fully unravel the monument's purpose. The stones themselves told a story of their own. The towering sarcens, gray and imposing, stood in stark contrast to the smaller bluestones, their origins a mystery in themselves. These bluestones, brought from distant lands in Wales, raised questions. How could ancient people, with little more than primitive tools, transport such massive rocks over 150 miles? The very logistics of their journey hinted at a level of organization and ingenuity that seemed almost out of place for a time so long ago. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting long shadows across the stones, the air seemed to hum with an unspoken energy. There was something otherworldly about the place, as if the monument itself carried a purpose beyond human comprehension. On the summer solstice, the first rays of light would pierce through the stones, illuminating the altar at the center of the circle. The alignment was no accident. Each stone seemed to point to the heavens, marking celestial events with meticulous precision. But why? Was it a divine calling? A grand cosmic ritual? Or something else entirely? The more one stood before the stones, the more the questions multiplied, each one spiraling into the next. Who were the people that built Stonehenge? What did they believe? Were they marking time? Or did they worship the sun and stars, seeing them as gods? The answers to these questions remained as distant as the stars themselves, always just out of reach. Yet, the allure of Stonehenge was undeniable. Its mystery pulled at the hearts of those who encountered it, from casual visitors to dedicated archaeologists. It became a place of pilgrimage, not just for its beauty or its historical significance, but for its promise of discovery, of understanding a lost time and uncovering the meaning behind the monument. As the day wore on, the shadows of the stones grew longer, and the questions only deepened. Stonehenge stood resilient, an enduring symbol of human curiosity and our unyielding desire to unlock the secrets of the past. And so, the journey began, not just to uncover its origins, but to understand the people who created it, and the deeper truth hidden within its ancient stones. Theories behind the creation. As the mystery of Stonehenge unfolded, the theories began to swirl like a storm, each one adding complexity to the riddle. Scholars, archaeologists, and dreamers alike speculated about its purpose, but no one had the definitive answer. Instead, each theory offered a glimpse into the possibilities, each narrative drawing a different picture of the past. It was a puzzle, and the pieces didn't quite fit together, but that only deepened the intrigue. The first theory that emerged from the dust of speculation was one rooted in the stars. Some believed that Stonehenge was an ancient astronomical observatory, a place where early humans studied the heavens. The alignment of the stones with the movements of the sun, particularly during the summer and winter solstices, seemed to support this. The idea was as captivating as it was plausible. Was Stonehenge a celestial clock, a tool used to track the sun's rise and fall, to understand the seasons, to measure time itself? For those who subscribed to this theory, the stones were not merely markers of the earth, but windows into the cosmos. But the cosmic theory was not the only one that took hold. Others argued that Stonehenge was a sacred site, a temple dedicated to gods and spirits that no longer walked the earth. In this version of the story, the stones were not just aligned with the stars, they were aligned with divinity itself. Rituals would have been held here, perhaps even sacrifices, to honor the gods or appease them. The sheer scale and grandeur of Stonehenge suggested something monumental, something more than a mere structure for timekeeping. It was a monument to human devotion, an attempt to reach beyond the mortal world and touch the divine. Then there was the theory of death and remembrance. Could Stonehenge have been a massive burial site, a place to honor the dead? This theory held that the stones were not placed for the living, but for those who had passed. Some of the surrounding area contained burial mounds, leading archaeologists to speculate that the stones were linked to the afterlife. The idea was somber and poignant. Perhaps Stonehenge was built to commemorate the ancestors, to create a bridge between the living and the dead, a place where both worlds could meet. Yet even these theories were not enough to explain everything. The very act of transporting the enormous stones, some of which weighed as much as 40 tons, raised questions about the capabilities of the people who built Stonehenge. How did they move these colossal rocks, some from as far as 150 miles away in Wales? The technology available to them was rudimentary at best, yet somehow they managed to carve, transport, and arrange these stones with remarkable precision. How could such a feat be accomplished without modern tools, without machines? The ingenuity required to complete such a task was staggering, and it forced even the most skeptical to wonder. Were these people just ordinary humans, or had they tapped into some forgotten knowledge? As the theories collided, the central conflict became clear. The more we uncovered about Stonehenge, the more we realized how much we still didn't know. Theories offered fragments of understanding, but none of them could explain the entire picture. And so, the quest to unlock the secrets of Stonehenge continued, each new theory raising more questions, pushing us further into the depths of history and beyond. The Black Pharaohs rule the two lands. The morning Pi entered Thebes, the city did not resist. It wept. Priests who had hidden in shattered temples emerged in silence. The streets, once littered with ash and blood, trembled under the rhythmic footsteps of Nubian soldiers. But there were no cries of conquest, no pillaging, no chains, only the steady beat of drums and the rising scent of incense. Offerings not to Pi, but to the gods he came to honor. He wore no golden crown, only a circlet of braided linen. His first act was not to raise a banner, but to cleanse the temple of Ammonius. With bare feet and bowed head, he entered the sanctuary alone, carrying nothing but a scroll and a single white lotus. The priests watched in awe. It had been decades since a ruler had entered without arrogance. Pi knelt before the altar. "Not for myself," he whispered, "but for the soul of Kemet." From Thebes he marched north, gathering support not through violence but through reverence. Cities surrendered before his standards even rose. He spared those who submitted, punished only the cruel, and restored land to peasants stripped of dignity. But as Pi restored Egypt's heart, cracks began to form around its edges. In Memphis, the wealthy elites feigned loyalty but whispered treason. Letters reached the eastern deserts, calls for aid to the Assyrians. The pharaoh Tefnakht, defeated but not slain, retreated into the delta, seething with vengeance. Pi knew he could end it all with one swift strike, but he hesitated. "I did not come to destroy men," he said to his commanders. "Only the sickness they served." Some saw mercy, others saw weakness. Yet under his rule, for a brief moment in time, the Nile flowed like it once had. Justice was swift but measured. Temples thrived. Women and men alike walked with purpose again. Egypt had not just been saved, it had been reborn. Still, the signs of unrest persisted. Ambassadors from foreign lands sent veiled warnings. Gold returned to temples, But spies lurked behind polished stone. The whispers of resentment grew louder. One evening, as Pi stood overlooking the river, his general approached. "They call you the Black Pharaoh now," he said. "To their children, you will be a ghost. A myth." Pi smiled, eyes reflecting the stars. "Let them forget my name," he replied, "but not what I stood for." That night, he ordered his return to Nepeta, leaving Egypt under trusted hands. He had no desire for statues or endless battles. His mission was done, but far beyond the temples he had restored, the storm continued to gather. And not even kings, no matter how just, could silence the hunger of history. Erased, but not forgotten, Pi never returned to Egypt. He died in Nepeta, buried in a pyramid of his own land, not beneath the towering obelisks of Thebes, but among the red hills of Kush. His son, Taharqa, rose in his place, brilliant, bold, and burdened by legacy. Taharqa ruled not as a shadow of his father, but as a storm of his own. He faced a different Egypt, one fragile and surrounded. The Assyrians no longer sent letters, they sent armies. The rebellion whispered in Pi's time had become a roar. Still, Taharqa stood tall. He expanded the empire from the Nile Delta to the borders of modern-day Palestine. He built, healed, and fought. His temples stood firm against time, and his victories echoed across sand and stone. But the world had changed. Conquest now came in waves, ruthless and unrelenting. The Assyrians, armed with iron and vengeance, tore through cities with fire and steel. One by one, Egyptian nobles turned traitor,